From our observation posts, humanity seemed insignificant. Tiny sparks clinging to pale blue worlds, small cities shimmering faintly against barren landscapes, their energy barely registering on even our most sensitive sensors. Their fleets were sparse, crude, and tentative, drifting between planets like fireflies lost in the vast, indifferent night of the galaxy. We catalogued their actions with casual detachment, amused by their fragility. Their conflicts were petty, their alliances fleeting, their technologies primitive. To us, they were a curiosity, a species at the edge of irrelevance. And yet, even through the superficial frailty, there was something that no algorithm could quantify, no sensor could capture, a flicker of intensity in their eyes, a subtle resonance in their movements that suggested awareness beyond instinct. It was not fear, nor desperation, nor even curiosity. It was a quiet, smoldering determination, a fire burning beneath every human gesture, every choice, every breath. We could not measure it. We could only observe, puzzled, and slowly, uneasily, recognize that it existed. They scraped existence from barren soils, negotiated fragile alliances among themselves, endured scarcity and hardship with resilience we had long assumed impossible for their size and simplicity. Our scanning arrays recorded anomalies, small bursts of energy in their engines that defied efficiency metrics, communications protocols that adapted in real time, small-scale technologies that contradicted our physics. None of it made sense. We laughed, unconcerned, believing time would place them in their proper, negligible slot in the galactic hierarchy. But patience is a weapon, and humans had been practicing patience for longer than we realized. Beneath their seeming compliance, beneath the shimmer of their cities and the hesitant motion of their ships, a subtle current of coordination flowed. They observed us as much as we observed them. They studied, they learned, they endured. Every failure, every attack upon them, every injustice strengthened an invisible lattice of will. We did not notice the tremors at first, anomalies in energy grids, minor victories against environmental catastrophes, fleets inexplicably surviving encounters they should not have. Each was a thread in a tapestry we could not yet see. Their patience was measured, deliberate. Like the slow accumulation of water behind a dam, it seemed harmless, insignificant, until it overflowed. From our lofty vantage, we were confident, smug in our superiority. We did not yet understand that a storm was forming, a storm of intent, intelligence, and audacity that would challenge every assumption we had ever held about the galaxy. The first signs of defiance were already taking shape, but we could not see them clearly. And as we observed, comfortably distant, a quiet hum reached us, not of engines nor of weaponry, but of will, human will.
It pulsed across the stars, patient, deliberate, and inexorable. We thought ourselves observers, but we were in truth witnesses to a calm before a storm that would change everything. The first reports arrived slowly, almost dismissively, as though the universe were testing our attention. Frontier outposts vanished without warning. Communications flickered and then died, leaving vast voids of silence where once a predictable network pulsed steadily. Small fleets we had long catalogued as inconsequential, disappeared, their destruction or disappearance defying all conventional reasoning. At first, we assumed anomalies, accidents, miscalculations, perhaps localized skirmishes among humans themselves. But then patterns emerged, patterns that no algorithm could anticipate, no fleet commander could foresee. We catalogued, mapped, and analyzed their movements with the precision of our centuries-honed methodology. And yet, the humans refused to conform. They struck with an audacity that was both precise and unpredictable. Every engagement violated expectation. Every maneuver confounded prediction. Squadrons appeared where none should have been. Outposts considered secure crumbled under attacks that violated physics as we understood it. Their improvisation was a language we could not translate, an intelligence that defied our calculations. From orbit, we observed entire systems awakening. Isolated colonies coordinated strikes simultaneously, exploiting weaknesses we did not know existed. Supply lines we assumed secure were severed. Communications we considered untouchable were hijacked, rewritten, or rerouted in ways that made no tactical sense, yet achieved devastating effect. And the humans themselves, they did not falter. Where one might expect panic, we saw clarity. Where we anticipated hesitation, we saw instinct refined into strategy. Every attack upon them only sharpened their collective will. Every casualty became a lesson. Every failure became a template for mastery. We realized too late that they had been preparing all along. They had studied us as much as we studied them,
learning our protocols, predicting our reactions, and subtly shaping the battlefield before a single warning alarm had been triggered. Our fleets, once symbols of dominance, found themselves scrambling, forced to react to tactics that should have been impossible. Entire battlefronts dissolved into chaos, but not for the humans. They were fluid, flexible, almost organic in the way they adapted to every challenge. What unsettled us most was not their number. They were few, even tiny against the sprawling forces of the galaxy. No, it was their resolve. We had assumed fear would keep them compliant, would keep them small, would keep them tethered to the limitations of their fragile worlds. Instead, it fueled them. Their losses strengthened them. Their failures refined them.
Their audacity became a weapon, sharp and silent, striking precisely where we had assumed we were safe. Across the galaxy, whispers spread faster than any fleet could move. Alien commanders debated in disbelief. Politicians scrambled to reinforce treaties. Scholars reevaluated centuries of doctrine. And still, the humans moved as though the universe itself were a puzzle meant for them to solve, untangling threads that had confounded our collective intelligence for eons. By the time we considered intervention, it was already too late. Humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement across multiple star systems, not through brute force, but through ingenuity, patience, and unshakable will. They did not just fight, they reshaped the battlefield, bending probability itself to their favor. And as we watched, awe and fear mixing in our sensors, we realized the humans were no longer prey. They were predators in miniature, relentless, precise, and terrifyingly adaptable. A tremor ran through our networks, subtle yet undeniable, as if the stars themselves were taking note. Every calculation we made faltered under the weight of their unpredictability. And in the silence of observation, a single truth became unavoidable. We had underestimated them. And the cost of that miscalculation would ripple through the galaxy in ways we could not yet imagine. For the first time, the universe paused, not in fear, but in anticipation. And from the depths of our curiosity, unease began to grow. Humanity had begun to awaken, and the question hung across the void, unspoken but undeniable. What are they truly capable of? Our fleets descended upon human-controlled systems with the certainty of inevitability. Engines thrummed with authority, shields hummed, and tactical arrays projected the confidence of civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. We expected compliance. We expected swift surrender. What we received instead shattered all expectation. Chaos erupted, not chaotic in the random sense, but orchestrated, deliberate, precise. Ambushes struck from directions our scanners had never considered. Countermeasures, previously impossible by any known standard, activated with eerie precision. Individual ships moved in patterns that bent our models, exploiting weaknesses in formation, shield alignment, and energy routing that our greatest strategists had long assumed secure. Entire fleets disappeared, only to reappear in positions that seemed to mock our understanding of space and time. Human commanders displayed a prescience that bordered on instinct. They anticipated our maneuvers, turning our superior numbers into vulnerability. Where our doctrine emphasized overwhelming force, they employed improvisation. Where we relied on calculation, they relied on intuition. Every battle became a study in paradox, small numbers defeating large, fragile vessels undermining massive constructs, chaos serving clarity. Our analysis grids burned with anomalies. Every recorded event was a puzzle that refused solution. Cities we had targeted for subjugation did not crumble, they transformed. Energy barriers shifted autonomously. Supply lines reoriented in real time. Defense drones recalibrated within hours. Fortresses re-engineered themselves, structures once static, now mobile, adaptive, almost alive in their defense. It was as though human engineers had rewritten the laws of construction and strategy overnight. And through it all, the humans did not panic. Fear, which should have immobilized them, became their tool. It sharpened thought, clarified intention, and allowed them to manipulate our confusion to their advantage. Each setback became a lesson. Every strike against them served only to refine their collective will. Their losses were not tragedies, they were catalysts, hardening, educating, perfecting. We, the observers, scrambled, tactical grids overloaded, command protocols failed. Our fleets, designed to overwhelm, now reacted too slowly, forced onto defensive patterns that humans exploited with deadly precision. Entire battlefronts disintegrated, as though under the hand of some unseen artist, every movement deliberate, every action purposeful.
Where we expected submission, we found mastery. Where we expected chaos, we found orchestration. The first shockwave did not end with destruction, it ended with revelation. Humanity's patience, previously imperceptible, had been a weapon, calibrated over decades, perhaps centuries. Every calculated delay, every absurd restraint, every ignored insult had been part of a grand design, now unveiled in devastating clarity. And as we watched fleets collapse, systems fall, and our dominance crumble in the face of their ingenuity, a sobering truth emerged. The universe had underestimated them. They were no longer prey. They were predators, small in number, yet precise, flexible, and inexorably potent. Their strategies blurred the line between brilliance and madness, and every movement reminded us that our assumptions were obsolete. The cosmos itself seemed to pause, uncertain, as if recognizing a force that could not be ignored, predicted, or restrained. And even as we scrambled to respond, we realized something more terrifying still. This was only the beginning. The first shockwave had struck. The ripple would spread. Humanity had begun its reckoning, and the galaxy had no choice but to observe. For the first time in history, a species we had measured as fragile forced the universe to reconsider its assumptions. And the question, cold and persistent, whispered across every observation post and command center. What else are they capable of? The tremors of humanity's rise spread faster than any fleet, faster than any network of communication. Across the galaxy, whispers turned to shouts, shouts into alarms. Alien civilizations that had long dismissed humans as inconsequential paused, reconsidered, and fortified. Treaties once thought permanent were reevaluated.
Borders, once assumed secure, were reinforced. Doctrines that had guided empires for millennia were questioned, debated, sometimes discarded entirely. The balance of power, once thought immutable, quivered. From our vantage points, we observed the tremor with growing unease. Even the most confident strategists hesitated, their calculations faltering under a force they could not quantify. We, watchers, custodians of civilizations, felt the shifting currents beneath the veneer of order. Systems that had never communicated now coordinated defenses, fleets moved preemptively, and political councils convened in emergency. Humans were not merely resisting, they were rewriting the rules. Every strike, every maneuver, every coordinated effort across multiple star systems altered the galaxy's political and military landscape. We cataloged it in awe and fear. Alien scholars debated whether these tactics could be replicated, studied, or anticipated. Generals admitted, grudgingly, that human ingenuity might rival the oldest, most advanced civilizations. Human victories were symbolic as much as strategic, broadcasting not just capability, but intent. Every conquered system, every redirected fleet, every fortified city that stood after assault carried a message. Audacity could shape reality. Their philosophy, embedded in action, declared that domination was not simply a measure of force, but a function of will, creativity, and patience. Even the most cynical among us could not deny the coherence beneath the apparent chaos. Where we expected confusion, we saw purpose. Where we expected despair, we saw calculated clarity. Their strikes, small and large, became lessons in precision, adaptability, and the raw force of a species that refused to be underestimated. Observation grids once reliable returned only anomalies, energy signatures, fleet formations, and rapid infrastructure adaptations that confounded our predictive algorithms. The galaxy, in essence, was witnessing a revolution led by a species few had taken seriously. Alliances shifted overnight. Formerly antagonistic civilizations sent envoys, seeking favor or negotiation. Even distant observers, ourselves included, could not reconcile the magnitude of what was unfolding. Humans were reshaping the cosmic stage, not through numbers, not through overwhelming technology, but through relentless innovation, patience, and audacity. And yet, they did not boast. They consolidated. They prepared. Every action carried purpose. Every pause carried calculation. In observing them, we recognized a terrifying truth. Humans were not only surviving, they were mastering, teaching, and reshaping the galaxy itself. Their momentum was unstoppable, and the universe, for the first time, understood that the calm before the storm had passed. A question echoed through every council, every fleet, every observation post. How far will they go before the galaxy fully comprehends the magnitude of their will?
The tremors had become a tide, and humanity, silent and deliberate, was guiding its flow. It began subtly, almost imperceptibly, a flicker here, a miscalculation there, events so small that most observers dismissed them as trivial. Yet for those of us watching from the cold observation stations, a tremor coursed through the galaxy, a vibration that spoke of something larger, something deliberate. Human colonies, once compliant, began refusing negotiations. They rejected treaties, ignored demands, and acted in defiance of protocols that other species would have followed to the letter. Their fleets, previously reactive and limited in scope, began offensive operations of unprecedented scale and precision. Entire systems, long considered secure under alien dominion, erupted in coordinated strikes. Planets that had never been expected to resist suddenly demonstrated uncanny unity. Human fleets, though modest in size, moved with a synchronicity that made our calculations collapse. They struck not in brute force, but in perfect harmony with timing, terrain, and opportunity, exploiting weaknesses we had assumed were unassailable. We observed from orbit as entire battlefronts dissolved into chaos, but chaos for us, not for them. Humans had transformed fear and danger into tools. Each attack upon them, each assault on their colonies, sharpened their focus. Losses became fuel for learning. Miscalculations became templates for refinement. Our strategies, once infallible, crumbled under the weight of their ingenuity. Observation arrays recorded phenomena that defied explanation. Fleets we believed destroyed reappeared across systems in impossible formations. Cities under bombardment reconfigured defenses autonomously. Energy barriers shifted, turrets reoriented, and supply chains rerouted, all within hours, all anticipating our strikes with a precision no AI could match. Their improvisation was not random, it was art, and it was lethal. We had assumed that superior technology would ensure dominance. We had assumed that numbers and firepower alone would suffice. But humans operated on a plane beyond mere calculation. They were flexible, adaptive, creative, willing to sacrifice what others could not, exploiting weaknesses invisible to centuries of experience. The galaxy, for the first time, witnessed their audacity not as theory, but as living proof. Their patience, previously invisible, was a weapon. Years of observation, of restraint, of meticulous planning had culminated in a singular crescendo. They had allowed us, the supposed superior species, to grow complacent, to underestimate them, to trust in predictable outcomes. And now they struck, not out of desperation, but out of inevitability. The first wave was devastating. Entire fleets disintegrated under coordinated human maneuvers. Command hubs, once considered unassailable, fell in hours. Systems thought secure turned against us overnight. Where we expected panic, we found clarity.
Where we anticipated retreat, we found audacity. Every human action carried the weight of strategy, improvisation, and almost prophetic anticipation of our moves. But it was not merely strategy, it was philosophy incarnate. Humanity's every action declared a truth the galaxy had long ignored. Resilience was more than survival. Willpower could bend circumstances to intent. Their victories were as symbolic as they were strategic, broadcasting a message across the stars. Underestimate us and you will be undone. The ripple effects were instantaneous. Empires that had once dismissed them trembled. Communications networks overflowed with reports of inexplicable human feats. Formerly secure supply lines, energy grids, and fleets became vulnerable to tactics so subtle, so precise, that they bordered on genius. Analysts, forced to update algorithms continuously, could never catch up. Every countermeasure seemed a step behind, every prediction an approximation. Humanity had become unpredictable, and unpredictability in the galaxy was equivalent to power. And yet, through all of this, the humans remained calm. They did not gloat, they did not overextend. They consolidated, adapted, and pressed forward with relentless precision. Each victory was measured, each maneuver calculated. They were a force simultaneously audacious and disciplined, a species that had learned to convert patience into inevitability. We, the Watchers, the Custodians, the architects of galactic order, felt unease settle like a cold shadow across our sensors. We had relied on fear, on force,
on predictability, and it had failed us. Humanity's audacity had broken the unspoken laws of power, bending the galaxy toward an order no one had anticipated. Every system that fell under their influence, every fleet neutralized, every fortress re-engineered overnight was a testament to the scope of their patience and to the terrifying perfection of their timing. By the time we realized the full scale of their intent, it was too late. Humanity had rewritten the rules of engagement. They were no longer reactive, no longer defensive. They had become the architects of the battlefield itself, shaping outcomes with intuition, creativity, and sheer will. And in doing so, they demonstrated a principle that transcends strategy, that a small, underestimated species could dominate through resilience, ingenuity, and audacity alone. The first shockwave had passed, but the impact continued to reverberate. Empires reeled, alliances faltered, and the galaxy was forced to reconsider the measure of power. Observers like us, who had cataloged civilizations for millennia, now found ourselves incapable of predicting the next move. Humanity had elevated patience to an art form, transforming anticipation into a weapon, restraint into inevitability, and audacity into dominance. The question that lingered across every observation post, fleet, and council was simple and terrifying. What else can they do?
Humanity's patience had snapped, and in its snapping, the galaxy had been remade. Systems once thought permanent were now mutable. Doctrines once considered unbreakable were now fragile. And we, the observers, the custodians of cosmic order, were forced to confront a truth we had long denied. Humans were no longer a species to be underestimated. They were a force, a singular, relentless, unyielding force that had transformed the galaxy in the space of days. And as the echoes of their triumph spread, one realization became unavoidable: nothing would ever be the same. In the aftermath of humanity's first true offensive, the galaxy reeled. Systems once considered bastions of alien control were now under human command, not through sheer numbers, not through overwhelming firepower, but through ingenuity, adaptability, and an unrelenting will that reshaped the balance of power. From our observation posts, the transformation was unmistakable. Entire sectors shifted allegiances overnight. Fleets once devoted to alien coalitions now coordinated in support of human objectives. What had seemed impossible had occurred. A species so small had become the axis around which galactic politics and strategy now turned. The humans did not celebrate their victories. They did not gloat over conquered systems or defeated fleets. Instead, they consolidated, prepared, and strengthened. Every maneuver, every alliance, every deployment carried purpose beyond the immediate, a preparation for the challenges yet to come. Their patience, once nearly invisible, had become the framework of their power. Where others rushed, they paused. Where others lashed out blindly, they calculated. Where others demanded submission, they inspired cooperation and cautious respect. Other civilizations began to respond. Former adversaries, previously hostile or indifferent, now sought connection. Tentative alliances formed, not out of loyalty, but from the recognition that humanity's momentum could not be ignored. Fleets once sworn to oppose them moved in support. Scientists and engineers shared technology. Advisors and diplomats traveled across systems to observe, learn, and adapt. And through it all, the humans remained methodical, calm, deliberate. Their victories inspired loyalty not through fear, but through competence and inevitability. From our stations, we cataloged the changes with a mixture of awe and dread. Entire political orders that had once seemed unshakable were now fragile. Systems once considered secure were now flexible, coordinated, and resilient under human direction. Their influence spread quietly yet inexorably, a network of strategic intelligence, inspiration, and trust forming faster than any alien coalition could hope to react. Observation grids noted a subtle pattern. The humans did not expand recklessly. They consolidated, they reinforced, they educated and incorporated. Every action was amplified by careful timing and anticipation, turning modest resources into disproportionate impact. Across the galaxy, whispers and legends spread. The audacity of humanity became folklore in real time. Reports of their feats circulated faster than fleets could respond. planets transformed into coordinated hubs of resistance, fortresses rebuilt overnight to withstand assaults that had previously been invincible, fleets executing maneuvers that seemed almost impossible given their size and resources. Humans were creating not just victories, but symbols, proof that a species could bend circumstance to will, that ingenuity and patience could rewrite the rules of engagement themselves. Even we, the observers, were forced to reassess every assumption. The human success was not accidental, it was deliberate on a scale that made prediction impossible. Algorithms could not measure their creativity. Strategy could not contain their audacity. Their willpower, combined with adaptability, had created a force larger than numbers, faster than conventional logistics, and more enduring than even the oldest civilizations we had cataloged. In every action, a philosophical statement was embedded. Resilience was not mere survival. Courage was not measured in weapons. Adaptation was more powerful than fleets. And above all, audacity could shape the galaxy in ways no calculation could anticipate. The humans were no longer a rising threat. They were a new standard, the measure by which every other civilization would be judged. The cosmic balance had shifted. Empires that had once dismissed them as insignificant now approached human-held systems with caution. Treaties were rewritten, borders fortified, and the calculus of power recalculated. Yet the humans did not take advantage of panic or indecision for selfish gain. Their consolidation was precise, measured, and deliberate. Every victory, every absorbed system, every ally was incorporated thoughtfully. They were transforming dominance into stewardship, power into influence, and resistance into cooperation. From our perspective, it was almost impossible. A species so small, so underestimated, had outmaneuvered every expectation. They had turned patience into weaponry, resilience into strategy, and audacity into an unstoppable force. And yet they did so without arrogance, without overreach, without revealing the full extent of what they were capable of. The galaxy, in a sense, had only seen the beginning of their potential. Observation posts, once confident in our ability to predict and control galactic order, now trembled in quiet awe. Scholars debated whether this momentum could be stopped. Generals admitted that human ingenuity rivaled that of the oldest civilizations. Politicians recognized that humanity had created a power network unlike any in history, a network built not on fear, but on competence, trust, and inevitability. And as we recorded these events, a sobering truth became undeniable. The galaxy would never again measure species solely by fleets or technology. Humanity had demonstrated that willpower, patience, creativity, and courage could overcome even the most entrenched and overwhelming power structures. Systems once considered immutable now yielded, alliances that had seemed permanent now shifted, and observers like us were left only to watch as the humans reshaped the universe around them. The turning point had arrived. The galaxy had learned, in shock and awe, that a species so small could create consequences so immense. And the humans, ever methodical, prepared for the next challenge, reminding all who watched that resilience was not simply survival, it was transformation. For the first time, we, the supposed superiors, the custodians, the recorders of civilization, understood the scale of what patience, audacity, and ingenuity could achieve. The galaxy would never forget this moment. Humanity had proven that the impossible was only a challenge to be overcome, and the universe would now be measured by their standard. The universe changed, slowly at first, imperceptibly, like a tide pulling at the edges of a shore, and then with unmistakable force. Empires that had once considered themselves untouchable paused, recalculated, and then bowed, not in submission, not out of fear, but in acknowledgement of humanity's inevitability. Systems that had been bastions of ancient alliances now bore the mark of human command, not through conquest for glory, but through precision, foresight, and unshakable will. From our distant observation posts, we, the watchers, the custodians of civilizations, witnessed a transformation the likes of which the galaxy had never seen. Humanity did not gloat, they did not flaunt victory, they did not pursue empire for the sake of dominion. Every action, every consolidation, every alliance was deliberate, calculated not for the immediate reward, but for the enduring architecture of the galaxy itself. Where other species expanded recklessly, they reinforced. Where others struck indiscriminately, they measured and integrated. Where others demanded loyalty, they inspired it. The alien consoles, once filled with certainty, now trembled. Scholars debated,
Generals recalculated, and politicians whispered in corridors, trying to comprehend the scale of what had occurred. Communications grids hummed with tales of humanity's ingenuity, fleets performing maneuvers previously thought impossible, planetary defenses reorganized in days, supply chains rerouted and optimized across star systems with uncanny efficiency. Every human victory was a demonstration of philosophy in motion, a lesson that audacity, patience, and adaptability could reshape the universe itself. And yet, the humans remained calm. They did not overreach. They did not provoke.
They consolidated every victory, ensuring that every system, every alliance, every achievement was preserved and reinforced. Their patience, the quiet, deliberate patience that had fueled the first shockwave, had become the foundation of a new order. And as they worked, the galaxy could only observe, powerless to interfere, forced to acknowledge that history had shifted irrevocably. It was not the size of their fleets, nor the sophistication of their technology that made them extraordinary. It was their spirit, the unyielding will that had allowed a fragile, underestimated species to stand against the greatest empires and emerge not merely intact, but dominant. Every action carried a lesson. Resilience is more than survival. Courage is more than bravery. Adaptation is more powerful than force. And audacity can bend circumstance itself. We, the observers, cataloged these events in awe and dread. Archives once brimming with confident predictions now overflowed with uncertainty. Every system reclaimed, every fleet neutralized, every alliance forged demonstrated a principle the galaxy had long ignored. Underestimate humans at your own peril. Their victories were measured, deliberate, and above all, lasting. They reshaped power not by annihilation, but by influence, foresight, and the calculated accumulation of capability. Across the cosmos, the echoes of their triumph spread. Civilizations once indifferent to humanity now studied them with reverence and caution. Fleets and outposts incorporated human methods, scholars analyzed human strategy, and even our own observation arrays struggled to keep pace with the ingenuity on display. Humanity's audacity became legend in real time, immortalized in records, debated in academies, whispered among the stars. The galaxy had learned a new standard, that patience, strategy, and relentless will could rival numbers, size, and technology in shaping destiny. And as humans stood among the stars, calm, resolute, unshakable, the universe recognized the magnitude of the moment. Systems once considered immutable were now malleable. Alliances once thought permanent were now flexible. Doctrines that had guided empires for millennia were now insufficient. Humanity's patience had snapped, and with it, the fragile order of the galaxy had been rewritten. No species would ever forget the moment. Not the generals who had misjudged them, not the scholars who had doubted them, not the observers who had cataloged them with detached curiosity. Humanity had demonstrated a force not measured by firepower, not quantified by fleets, but by indomitable will and unmatched ingenuity. Their triumph was quiet, deliberate, but absolute. And we, the Watchers, finally understood the scale of what had occurred. The galaxy would never again measure greatness by numbers alone. The standard had changed. Resilience, creativity, patience, and audacity were now the metrics of true power.
Humanity had established not a reign of terror, not a fleeting dominance, but a model, a new paradigm for how a species could reshape the universe itself. The era had shifted. The cosmic balance, once predictable, had been redrawn. And as the stars themselves seemed to acknowledge the quiet power of humanity, one immutable truth became clear. The universe underestimates humans at its own peril. Their legacy, their standard, their example would echo through millennia, and the galaxy, forever altered, would carry the memory of the moment when humanity's patience finally snapped, a moment of awe, of fear, and of undeniable triumph. The galaxy had witnessed a new order, one not built on conquest alone, but on the deliberate orchestration of intellect, courage, and will. Humanity had become the measure against which all species would now be judged, and the echoes of their triumph would inspire civilizations for eons. The age of inevitability had arrived.
The stars had learned to watch, to anticipate, and above all, to respect the indomitable force that was humanity.